All right, let's take you to this now. Business Unity South Africa has condemned the warnings of violence and looting by the economic freedom fighters against those businesses and South Africans who do not support its call for a national shutdown on Monday next week. In a statement, BUSA says the right to protest is protected in our constitution as long as it does not infringe on the constitutional rights of other South Africans. Looting, violence, incitement and intimidation are criminal acts that are not protected by the Constitution and should be protected to the full extent of the law. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Business Unity South Africa's Deputy CEO Khulekani Mathe. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, if I understand your statement correctly, you are in support, in principle, of what South Africans are calling out in terms of load shedding, as well as high food and fuel prices. But you're not a support in any way of violence during any protest.
Well, just to clarify our position, there's no denying that, South Africa is in a bad shape. The economy is contracting and the cost of living is increasing. So there's no denying that those are challenges we're facing as a country. But we do not believe that the solution to those challenges is to stage a national shutdown. We don't see how that in any way solves the problem, and therefore we do not support the call for a national shutdown.
What is businesses, comment around, just some of the things, and you've mentioned some of them, that South Africans are calling out for instance, leadership in government in terms of what the country is currently experiencing, with load shedding being one of them. The minister in the presidency this morning gave a briefing in terms of what cabinet is saying about, for instance, load shedding, and mentioned that Business Unity South Africa is in conversation or will be in conversation with the electricity minister for one. But just take us through, what your standpoint in terms of the state of the nation currently.
We believe that the challenges facing the country need all of us to work together to try and resolve them. You will be aware that business in South Africa has last week announced that we have put together a fund to raise some money to support government's effort around resolving the energy crisis. So we believe that all of us in the different spaces that we occupy, we should be thinking and looking for constructive ways of solving the problem, and we do not see staging a strike or a national shutdown as being a solution at all to the problem.
Businesses are on their knees, and right now we understand that the energy crisis that we're facing, in as far as load shedding is concerned, could take between 6 to 12 months if we're being optimistic to resolve. Some analysts putting it back as far as 5 years. But will businesses be able to survive that lengthy period?
So businesses are severely affected by the load shedding. Smaller businesses or small businesses particularly so, because they do not have the resources to either buy generators or any other alternative means of energy. So yes, we are feeling as business the pressure of load shedding, and the longer it drags out, the more it is obviously having a negative impact on businesses. This is why we are taking a proactive stance to say, we know that this is a problem, it needs to be solved, and we know that our government does not have a particularly good track record of delivering. That is why we've mobilized the resources so that we can resource the implementation of the National Energy Plan that was announced by the President, because it is in our interest, it is in the interest of everybody that the problem be solved. And to the extent that there is a good sense of what the challenge is and how it can be solved, we are willing and want to put our shoulder to the wheel to solve the problem.
Just take us back to, we know that, of course, that Business Unity South Africa, as well as other entities around the business fraternity, are working very closely with government to, for one, solve the energy crisis. But there are other things at stake. Just talk to us about just some of the workings behind the scenes that are currently happening, that are in your stable within this financial year.
So, I mean, I've indicated the support that we're giving to the presidency to support or to implement the energy plan. That is one part. But we had a meeting last week from a BUSA point of view with the new Minister of Electricity, and this week the Minister was meant to meet with BLSA, Business Leadership South Africa. Again, we want to hear what the Minister has in terms of plans and to see how we can support those plans. So we definitely are open to working with government, in fact, are working with government to try and solve the problems, because we believe that the problems have reached a point where they need all of us to contribute.
Are you optimistic?
We can only be optimistic. If we were not, we would have to close shop and go somewhere else. That's not an option for us. We are in this country, and we believe this is a great country. We believe it is facing challenges, but these challenges are not insurmountable. And this is why we are prepared to really work hard to solve the problems rather than walk away from the problems. And we most certainly don't believe that staging a march or a strike or a shutdown will solve the problems. If anything, it will set us back, because everybody loses in a situation like that. Workers lose, businesses lose. In particular, I want to emphasize that even if it is a peaceful shutdown, but the amount to the economy that will be lost would really be devastating, especially for an economy that has contracted in the previous quarter by 1.3%. So we don't believe that we should be inflicting such pain on an economy that is already at its weakest point.
Mr. Mathe, thank you so much for coming through and for joining us right here on the show. Appreciate your time. That was Business Unity SA's Deputy CEO, Khulekani Mathe.